Have you ever been interested in a game purely by its aesthetics? I'm sure this happens all the time, especially from indie companies that produce some beautiful games for modern systems. But this doesn't happen all the time when it comes to retro stuff. But when I first heard about Ridge Racer Type 4, I was instantly captivated by its aesthetic. Everything about this game feels deliberate and precise. The UI is absolutely beautiful, and everything comes together to produce something that I saw as simply some of the most elegant design, especially from a game from the late 90s. And so of course I had to find a copy for myself and check out the game. I've had this copy of Ridge Racer 4 for quite some time now, but only now am I actually sitting down to play through the game. I'm a pretty big fan of racing games in general, but I wouldn't consider myself a diehard. I got so wrapped up by the aesthetic and the whole vibe of this game, and I just had to check it out. I also want to give some shoutouts to the intro sequence that plays out before you start the game. Since video playback was relatively new at the time of the PS1, it felt like every game needed to have some sort of intro sequence to really get you excited to play the game. The intro for Ridge Racer 4 absolutely sets the tone in a beautiful way. It's just so classy and smooth. It's like, something about it. It's like the shot composition, the way that they model the cars, and then the little story that they tell is really beautiful. It does everything you can to get you excited to be an awesome racer. During the early 3D era, it felt like a lot of games were using very utilitarian methods of graphic design and user interface. There's obviously a lot of consideration that goes into any UI, but I feel like UI wasn't a major consideration for a long time when it comes to game development. While some modern games like Persona 5 have brought a lot of visual flair to UI, a lot of games even today are very function over form when it comes to their menus. But by the late 90s, games like Ridge Racer Type 4 were allowed to experiment with motion graphics. And seeing Ridge Racer Type 4 for the first time, it looked like something that was so unique and distinct amongst all of its retro game peers. The whole UI is beautifully rendered with silver, black, and yellow. Everything about it screams sophistication and class with a little bit of fun. Everything in the menu is broke down into geometric shapes and distinct icons. And the high contrast black and yellow makes everything pop. Even the loading screens have a specific look that they're going for. So here are a few things from the motion graphics and UI design that I really love. I'm a big fan of the way that this little loading background effect matches the music. And I also love how all of the text glides in smoothly with like a black to white gradient. I really love the way that the character portraits were made to match the rest of the UI in color and line weight. Also love the way that they present the layout of the track with this 3D map that pops out in the background. Every graphic slowly glides in or pops immediately. Like it's just fantastic. But Ridge Racer Type 4 isn't just a pretty face. Beneath the pretty graphic design and bright yellow colors lies a really fun racing game. I have played a little bit of Ridge Racer, but I've never really dived into this series. I do happen to just have a few games in the series through collecting GameCube and PS3 games, but I never really tried them out. So pumped up by that intro and the beautiful UI, I jumped right into the Grand Prix. I went through the Grand Prix mode with the Pac-Man car just because I thought it was the standard, but I really had a bit of a hard time getting on board. At first, I felt like things were a little jerky, and I didn't really understand how you were supposed to drift around corners. Once I got the timing right and the feel down, it felt amazing to hit some of these turns. Just like the UI design, the gameplay is meant to feel snappy and smooth, and it all works out. Not to mention, this is one of the best looking games on the system. A lot of the cars have little specular effects like light reflections, and the environments are amazing. I'm sure there's a lot of trickery that goes behind a lot of these lighting effects. When it comes to graphics, I am running the game on a PS3 Super Slim, so I'm not sure if I'm getting the entire picture when it comes to the aliasing and that sort of thing, but I really do like that PS1 aesthetic when it's still being run through all the pixels. I think these early 3D games can actually kind of benefit from the low resolution. I love the sense of speed that you get as you go through the track, but at one point I got stuck at a race and had to try a few times. I just couldn't make it to first place, and I would constantly mess up on the last turn and lose. And that's when I decided I should consult the sacred texts. I thought this was one of those PS1 games that only supports the D-pad, but it seems like that's not the case. I swapped to the analog stick instead of the D-pad, and it helped me a lot. After a bit of struggle, I finally managed that first place, and it felt so good. Ridge Racer is all about this drifting mechanic. It's super simple, but it can be really hard to get a handle of if you don't really know what you're doing. But after just a few minutes with the game, I got pretty good at it, at least in my mind. As you go through the Grand Prix, you unlock new cars, and it turns out that there's like hundreds of cars. I think it can be hard to sort of explain the feeling of racing games. They're really hard to demonstrate the expression and momentum that you feel when you're in the middle of a heated race. So I hope that maybe you can check out the game yourself at some point and really get a feel for it, because I think the racing is a lot of fun the better you get at it.
Real Racing Roots 99 in Brightest Night.
By the end of the Grand Prix, I felt like I really had a hand on the racing. It took me about an hour and a half to get through this little campaign. Partway through, your coach was suddenly saying that he was responsible for somebody dying on the track. I wasn't really aware that there was all this meaningful plot development in Ridge Racer. But it is really cool that they established this little world where there's specific car brands that are custom made by Namco. You're going through this whole game and you're of course listening to that amazing soundtrack. I've been listening to the Ridge Racer Type 4 soundtrack in the background while I do work for at least a few years. It's the one thing that I knew was amazing about this game, and as a part of the gameplay, it is even better. Racing on the tracks at night really fit well with the music. Every music track is just super chill and relaxed, and it somehow makes it work with the game. Some of my favorite tracks were Turn the Page, Pearl Blue Soul, and Silhouette Dance. But they're all so good. After you finish this video, look up the soundtrack, you will not be disappointed. I was really surprised how much I was having fun with this one. It's really the complete package. We've got an amazing soundtrack, fantastic UI and graphic design, and really fun gameplay. My main complaint really is that there's just not enough stuff to do here. After I finished the campaign, I did look around in the menus to see if there's anything else cool. I went into the garage for a bit and made an emblem. This kind of reminds me of Mario Kart DS, where you could make a little emblem. It's pretty much the exact same mechanic, actually. Of course, I had to put together a little Camobot in case I decide to come back to the game. I'm sure that if you're like a hardcore racing fan guy, you'll probably think of a dozen games that are maybe worth your time a bit more than this, but I had a blast with my short time with this game. I could absolutely see myself coming back to do another campaign on a harder difficulty. Another fun thing is that Ridge Racer Type 4 also came with a bonus disc. They don't really do stuff like this anymore, but the original game came with a bonus disc that had a demo for Ridge Racer 1 that ran at 60 frames per second.
This is just what I wanted to see.
You can actually compare for yourself because they also have the exact same track in Ridge Racer 1's original build. I think this is a really cool example of developer commentary before that became more of a common thing. But even in modern games today, we don't really see enough of that sort of thing. Just reading this short little blurb about 60 frames per second Ridge Racer was really interesting, and got me pretty excited to test it out. Unfortunately, I am awful at the original Ridge Racer, and no amount of skills that I had built up on Type 4 applied here. The drift system here is really weird. Demo discs like this were a lot of fun, and I kinda got a kick out of the weird aesthetic that it has. Comparing that menu to the menus in Ridge Racer Type 4 is so weird, but they're both in the same package. This has been a quick video just talking about this game that has always kind of been in the back of my mind, and I felt like I finally had a chance to kind of check it out. Have you ever played Ridge Racer 4? And if you haven't, have you ever played a game where the graphic design absolutely blows you away? Have you ever played a game purely because of the vibes? So with that out of my system, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, subscribe. Take care.